Welcome to Autism Weekly, the podcast that discusses autism news, current events, and inclusion. Each week, we welcome a guest to the program to share their unique perspective and expertise as it relates to the fascinating world of autism. I'm your host, Jeff Skibitsky. I'm the founder and president at ABS. I've been in the field of autism and applied behavior analysis as a clinician and advocate for nearly 2 decades. This week, we welcome Leticia Moreno and Danyelle Beal from BABA to the podcast. BABA is hosting their first annual Black Applied Behavior Analyst Conference in June. BABA aims to reduce barriers for African American students, professionals, and parents within the ABA community. We're excited to talk about the upcoming conference and the importance of diversity in ABA. Both Leticia and Danyelle are BABA board members, as well as board-certified behavior analysts. Leticia, Danyelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is a long overdue conversation. I can't wait to dive into some of these topics and to learn how BABA is going to be tackling some of the issues and educating all of us in the field on how we can be better behavior analysts, but also how we can be better at supporting multicultural issues. Yeah. So I guess we'll start with just getting an understanding. So how was BABA formed? Most associations are, of course, formed out of need. There's something missing from an industry, something missing from a society. So how was BABA formed?
So Kat Jackson, I think, started a group on Facebook that to kind of bring together Black clinicians and just kind of talk about their experiences in the field. And then that turned into kind of formalizing and I think structuring some of the content that was being delivered and discussed. And I don't know the dates because I'm really bad at dates, but at some point,
me neither.
There was a discussion to kind of formalize the interactions that were occurring within the Facebook group. And so they decided to call the Facebook group something else and kind of take BABA, and it became a nonprofit where we had to start kind of organizing board members and our bylaws and kind of determining what we would offer to the community in a more, like I said, structured fashion. And I want to say that was maybe 2 years ago. I think we just hit our 2-year mark, or we're about to.
Prior to BABA being formed and prior to these discussions being out in the forum and starting through Facebook, starting through a more kind of organized structure, where were these questions falling?
I don't know. And let me just give you my personal kind of experience. So I've been serving in the field of ABA for 23 years this month. And in all of that time, Jeff, I had come in contact with one other BCBA who was Black. And I didn't realize kind of how that impacted me until this global pandemic. Prior to that, I had randomly came across like BABA membership. This was like last year. I think they had just developed, because when I reached out and I was like, what is this about? This seems great. They hadn't even fully kind of organized what it was, but I was like, I signed up for the membership because I was like, there's other like Black clinicians. Sign me up. I don't care what it is or what you're doing. I want to have access. I didn't know about the Facebook group at the time. So I don't know like what other Black clinicians were kind of thinking or where they were getting their questions answered. But for me, as soon as I saw that opportunity, I became a member. And then I, saw like openings to help with like conference and sponsorship and conference type stuff. And so I applied to assist because I am a servant at heart, and got to know some of the founding members. And the more I got to know them and understand BABA's mission, the more I wanted to do. And so now, as I understand, this is really such a valuable place for every I know Black clinician that I've come in
Hmm.
contact, but even supporting other clinicians of color, because, like my experience, a lot of clinicians didn't even know that there was an entire world of representation, really. And I think that's kind of the meat of what we're talking about, is just having access to other clinicians who have experienced a lot of the same challenges within the field of ABA.
To talk about what Danielle mentioned as well, that need for a place where we can network with each other was another reason why, I wanted to be a part of BABA, to be able to, network with other clinicians who are, like-minded, and also may not have come across another clinician that looked like them. And that was definitely the case for me as well. And, the clients that we work with come from many different backgrounds as well. So I definitely feel that it was important for me to be able to work with families that may not have come across a clinician that looked like myself as well. And to just provide that opportunity for us to educate our clinicians through CEUs and things like that, but also be able to reach clients as well, to help them understand that we may be able to relate to them as well. And I think that that is something that, BABA definitely tries to spread, is that we're not just able to reach clinicians based off of our CEUs and things like that, but also reach clients and educate them.
And that's got to be a wonderful resource for families, and to help them feel like, there are people that look like me. There are people that understand where I'm coming from in my experiences, that now can be a part of my treatment team and really guide me on how to be able to navigate some of these challenging issues that others might not be aware of. And that's where I think I was looking at your conference schedule, and it got me excited, but we actually talked about this at ABS Kids in our Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And can you tell me about some of the things that BABA is going to be bringing up at the conference, some of those initiatives that are making us as an industry, as clinicians, and hopefully is that there's a way to be able to get this information to families, but as a society, getting us thinking. What are some of the major topics that y'all will be tackling?
Yeah, so a couple things I want to address before I answer that, and if I forget, just redirect me. So this, you posed kind of this thought, Jeff, about how has this field, right, and in all of its decades that it's been formed, been able to move forward without having a large representation of Black clinicians specifically, but clinicians of color. And I think that the idea, and you're right, and I think that's a part of what BABA is tackling, is that, hey, these systems are being created and these platforms are being developed without the voices of, people of color. We're going into these families' homes, like you mentioned, and we're providing services. And it is very rare that a Black family specifically has access to a Black BCBA or Black staff. And a lot of opportunities in 23 years that I've been serving, I have seen so many missed opportunities, so many misunderstandings, so much frustration surrounding cultural issues that haven't been addressed because there's this huge disparity in representation. And so I think BABA is really focused on, again, bridging that gap. And so a part of what we're doing for the conference is allowing families to become members, of BABA, so that they can have access to information, products, materials, opportunities to learn, opportunities to network, which I think is different than other, professional organizations. And so that I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. And then your question about leadership. So yes, this is huge, because oftentimes, and I think we all know the statistics, that Black clinicians, specifically women of color, that there is a huge disparity between them and their like white counterparts. And so we don't get a lot of opportunities. Me personally, I came into the field very young. I was 19, and I worked as an independent contractor. And so when I got hired within the first agency that I worked at, I was hired as a senior staff. And so I have really served in a leadership capacity my entire career for 23 years. And I've had to create opportunities for growth. So I was creating positions that served my skill set. There was a lot of damage that was done because of lack of cultural understanding, because I was misunderstood as a Black woman, as a mother, right? All these different intersectionalities of what made me a good clinician were missed because of lack of, cultural understanding. And so specifically to your question, Baba is really focusing on some of the issues that have come up with Black clinicians specifically, like imposter syndrome, like lack of leadership opportunities. And we're providing information to the masses so that other I don't know how to word that, other people that who aren't of color, right, that kind of understand those barriers that come up. We're talking about this as a group, as a culture, but this information isn't being spread to, right, the ABA field as a whole. And so Baba is really creating the space where we can have these open discussions so that people like you, Jeff, and, organizations like ABS Kids can kind of start to understand some of those barriers and how they've deeply affected us as a community and affected the field as a whole, because it is missing a big chunk of this cultural representation.
Absolutely wonderful initiative. I think that the only way that I can grow, the only way that others around me can grow is by having an open dialogue, open mind, and being able to understand experience of others. So the fact that you all are putting this together, I think, is a wonderful contribution to the community at large, and especially to the behavior analytic field. And even just talking in autism, you're talking about the families, you're getting them involved. There's such a misunderstanding, even starting at diagnosis for the Black community. Yes. And it just trickles down all the way through care, where without having this dialogue, you're doing a disservice to so many children.
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, even prior to diagnosis, specifically a huge issue within the Black community is that there's lack of resources and understanding, even that there is kind of this issue of autism or developmental delays, right? So before we even can step foot in the house to kind of treat this diagnosis, we have to provide education to this community about what autism is, because there's a lot of misunderstanding surrounding that, right? And so when we're not having these discussions, we are really, and I think we've felt this as a community, we're just now starting to have these conversations globally and, as a field, that we have to do more collectively, that we can't just kind of do this individually, because I think all of us have been operating on an individual level. And so it really takes a village to kind of, even prior to diagnosis, kind of offer resources for families.
So, and Letitia, so right now we're at a pivotal moment where these dialogues are finally taking place. It's a long time coming, and now finally people are talking. And you have conferences that you all have been putting together to get out there for that annual conference coming out right now, where now it's a platform to start discussing this. But how do we make sure that this cultural awareness, this understanding of the Black community, is that it isn't just words and it isn't just us talking about it, but it becomes something that's actionable? How, as a profession, do we take that step? What is the appropriate training? What is the appropriate implementation? What's being discussed on that level?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think definitely we need to make sure that after we've learned everything, that we're putting these things in action, as you mentioned, right? So definitely having that ongoing, that maintenance opportunities within our field, within different companies to continue to train new clinicians on how to incorporate that cultural diversity, I think is definitely very important. And then also just holding everyone accountable, I think is definitely a way to make sure that we're all, providing that cultural diversity and the ability to continue to provide opportunities for, our parents to come across clinicians that look like them or can relate to their families.
Yeah, it's very important. And I mean, to go back to something you had mentioned, Danyelle, as far as when you started out, there weren't many people who looked like you, who were doing the same service as what you were providing, yet they were providing it to a lot of families who probably looked like you. I mean, so the Black community just didn't have representation. So what are some of the areas of improvement, or how can we go about creating more diversity in the field? Are there education programs? Are there scholarships? Is there something BABA is pushing out there to be able to create this opportunity so that we can have more clinicians, we can have more managers, more leaders, more thought leaders in the field of behavior analysis that are from the Black community?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that really, again, I told you I saw Baba and I was like, sign me up. And then as I got to know them more intimately, through the board members and through what they were promoting and supporting, within the Black community specifically, I fell in love with the mission. And a part of what Baba offers are scholarships to students. They really promote kind of helping and supporting Black clinicians of color, because there are so many barriers and that's a whole other episode to kind of talk about the barriers that come up for Black clinicians in this field specifically, specifically because there is no representation, and a lot of those cultural kind of issues come up. They're misunderstood and they're just not handled appropriately. I know this firsthand. And so Baba really wants to highlight and promote and support growing clinicians. And so they offer scholarship opportunities. We are, allowing students to come to these conferences. My entire career, I've been told, like, if you're not supervisory level, then you're not invited to sit at this table. And it's like, no, like we have to be, again, like I was talking about the families, offering resources so that Black clinicians understand this field, what they're getting into, and understanding how to navigate it, because it is very challenging. I mean, all of us can kind of think back over our careers and know some of those hurdles that we've had to jump. And so Baba just wants to create spaces where, especially like our entry level students and RBTs and like newer clinicians, are supported and saying, hey, no, I've gone this road before you. I can help you through this. And then we're offering, again, scholarships to conferences, to workshops. I mean, we have OBM opportunities. We have, I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but so many cohorts, new business owners, they've offered, scholarships and just information. And those are things that like I had to figure out on my own. I know Letitia's a business owner. I don't know how you navigated, kind of learning, but I had to do it old school. And, and then back then we didn't have a supportive community. Like me starting a business was in direct conflict with the agency that I was working for now. And it's right. And so now we're talking about collaboration. How did you, start your business? What forms did you need? Right. And Baba is really creating this space where we're openly talking about these things, and we're offering resources so that you don't have to carry that burden by yourself. And this goes back to just the Black community having community with each other, right? Like culturally, generationally, systemically, that's what the Black culture is about community. And so Baba is just kind of creating that space in a professional kind of manner, which I think is, what's the word I'm looking for? Revolutionary, really.
It sounds like a lot of wonderful avenues for growth and development. And I mean, from the clinician level to the business owner level, to the community and family level, all of these, I think, I was one of the topics that shows up on your conference is exploring barriers to treatment with stakeholder driven research. But just the overarching idea behind that to me is that oftentimes communities aren't getting treated because there isn't representation from the provider network.
Right.
Which is scary at times. And then also is that families aren't seeking the care because they don't think that people are going to truly understand what they're coming from and what they're experiencing. And that sort of thing right there is that by growing the Black behavior analytic community, by educating others around you on, this is how to be able to better support the Black community, I think that's going to open up so much care, and it's going to reduce the burden of access to care for so many families. What do you all see as far as how the BABA initiatives are actually going to open up more access to care to other underserved communities and provide a better starting point for some of those children or even young adults who identify as autistic that need that support that never could get it beforehand? Are the BABA initiatives driving us that direction?
I hope so. I think the first thing that when you mention all of that, Jeff, is trust. We're talking about rapport, right? And just having representation allows for trust that I think, again, we haven't talked about in the 20 years, the 2 decades that I've been a part of the community. And that opens doors, just being able, even having, like the membership option for parents like BABA has, is allowing parents to have a seat at the table, right? And I think as a field, we've experienced parents are over here, we're the professionals. And so you're going to take this ABA service and it's going to be according to what I believe as a scientist, right? And these parents have to take this. And I've operated differently my entire career, where I'm like, I don't care what level that you are. You can be RBT, you can be, BCBAD, you can be parent, you can be, a provider in another area. We're all sitting at a round table, and we're all kind of collaborating together because we're a team. And I think BABA really is supporting that stance, is like, I don't care what title you hold, or like, we're all a team and we've got to figure this out together. And so these initiatives, I think, absolutely will support the field as a whole in just modeling. And I think that's what I've kind of, from my vantage point, have watched BABA do. Like, we're just modeling. Like, we have Adrienne Bratley is a powerhouse. She's our BABA president, and she has all of these like amazing ideas. And sometimes it can be overwhelming as a team to like, where are we going to fit that in? And how are we going to do that? But I think these initiatives from her and the rest of the team are really to change how the field is, reacting to our families and to our clinicians, and just modeling what we would like to see based on our own kind of personal experiences individually.
And I will say is that over the last few years is that I have learned a lot just through dialogue, through conversation, through being able to have this open discussion and exchange of ideas. And I would suggest that everybody look to going to the BABA conference and learning and just going in and being a listener during the process. So how can folks get access to the BABA conference? How do you get on the list to be able to attend? Is it virtual this year? Is it in person? All the COVID questions. But Danyelle, where and how do we get this information?
So you can go to our BABA conference website. I believe it is www.babaconference.org. Is that right, Letitia? Good. Okay.
That's right.
And and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we're offering, I don't know if this is still accurate, anyone who comes in and kind of registers before a certain time, then we have some cool swag to send out to you. But yeah, and we actually have sponsorship opportunities. I know a couple of members have offered scholarship opportunities. So yeah, you can go on the website. You can check out our BABA page on Facebook. You can check out our Instagram. And we're constantly promoting the conference and promoting opportunities to be sponsored for registration.
Well, I appreciate you all taking the time today to talk with me. I think just by having this opportunity and this conference, like the things that you're tackling are things that people didn't typically tackle at conferences. And I think that every behavior analyst should head out, and this is the first of its kind sort of conference for BABA to be taking it on. I think that everybody should get out there and listen. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And I hope that you have very large attendance at the conference. I know I'll be there.
Thank you. And can I just say, Jeff, you mentioning that just being a listener, and be willing to listen, I think is vital for this field to kind of shift and be shaped into a more inclusive kind of field. And so thank you for modeling that, because I think it's easy to say, well, I don't know what to do or I'm doing enough. But I think all of us as humans, however we identify, whatever our intersectionalities are, can sit in any conversation. And if we're willing, we can learn and absorb and grow. I don't think we're ever at this place of self-actualization. I think it's continual. And so I really appreciate you modeling that, because I think that's kind of what's necessary to kind of shape the field to become more inclusive. So thank you. Thank you for having us. And thank you for giving us the space to kind of talk about what we're doing as an organization.
My pleasure. And we'll have to get you all back on again sometime to dive deep into some of these topics that you guys are tackling at the conference. So thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Autism Weekly. We hope you tune back in next week to learn more about autism in the real world. Autism Weekly is now found on all the major listening apps, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. Subscribe to be notified when we post a new podcast. Autism Weekly is produced by ABS Kids. ABS Kids is proud to provide diagnostic assessments and ABA therapy to children with developmental delays like autism spectrum disorder. You can learn more about ABS Kids and the Autism Weekly podcast by visiting abskids.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you again next week.